Today's podcast guest is Denarius Lewis, and we get to hear the story of a young man who never gives up. Denarius talks about his life of couch surfing and being down to only $1.78 in his pocket. Then later becoming a homeowner and a landlord. Talk about success. He shares his discipline of falling down many times and all his setbacks along the way. What turned it around? And watching the movie The Secret for 30 days straight. He now aspires to one day be a good husband, a good father, and buy his mother a home.
My name's Travis Sims, and I am the founder and CEO of AGC Accelerated Global Connections. And this is the AGC Experience.
Have you wondered if Facebook and Instagram ads could work for your business? Do you know that these ads are the most cost-effective advertising on and off the internet today? That is, if you know what you are doing. Isn't it time to take advantage of Facebook and Instagram ads to get more leads and sales for your business? Janet E. Johnson has helped bring in millions of dollars using online marketing strategies. She offers both management and training solutions. Set up a discovery call with her to see if your business is a fit. JanetEJohnson.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to the AGC Experience podcast show. I'm super excited for our guest here today. A part of our speaker series in the AGC Experience, we're going to be interviewing Denarius Lewis in just a little bit. But at first, I want to say thank you for tuning in. Audience, we are getting subscribers, listeners, watchers from all over the country and all over the world. And not only are we doing and recording this podcast right now, but thanks to Denarius, we are live streaming the process of building this podcast as well. So this is going to be a fun experience for all of us. Please do me this favor. If you find quality in today's podcast, we want you to share it with others. We want you to send that link when it's available. We want you to send it to others. So Denarius, thank you for being here today. We're super excited to get to know you. You were a speaker at our Minneapolis event. I believe it was December. Am I hitting the month right?
Yep, December, right before we went into the new year.
Yes, December 2019. And you had such a great message, and we had a huge audience that day. And I'm super excited because we got you for 15 minutes, but I'm excited to get to know you, a little bit about you and your history and where you came from and what you're passionate about. So if you would take it just a moment and introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background.
Sure. So everyone, my name is Denarius Lewis. I am a motivational speaker, an author, activist, landlord, a man with many titles, but I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee. I grew up there for a little bit. My family decided to move to Minnesota in 1998, and that's where I currently reside. I graduated high school in Burnsville, so I grew up with two older sisters. 15 years old is really when I really started my first business. So when people talk about entrepreneurship, where did you come from? I started having to help out around the house financially at a very early age. I got my first job at Dairy Queen in Burnsville, right across the street from school. I was a wrestler, so right after wrestling practice, I had to trolley over to Dairy Queen to sell those dilly bars. And my big passion has always been just doing things that are different. I grew up in a household where, go to school, get good grades, and graduate. Well, as I went down that path, it just didn't work out for me. So after I graduated high school in 2011, I went to college out in Iowa at a school called Iowa Central Community College, and I went out there for a year. I was blessed to be a part of two national champion teams, one in wrestling, one in cross country. But after suffering my 9th concussion, I said, I'm done wrestling. I'm done trying to be this macho guy. There has to be something else out here. And I was sick of getting my eyes beat up and head butts and all that crazy stuff. And so I decided to transfer to school to Sierra Nevada College in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Really cool school, very unaffordable. It was $44,000 a year. And I was like, all right. I lasted one semester, and my family decided to move back to Tennessee in that time frame. So I was like, well, okay, I want to go back to Minnesota. That's where I grew up. That's all I really know. And I ended up meeting a guy out there, and he said, oh, Denarius, you can come out to Minnesota and just stay with me. I said, cool, all right. Well, I went to go visit family because it was the winter of 2012, Christmas time. And when I came to his house, and he's like, oh, he just thought I wanted to party because he gave me the invite at a party. So when I came to his house, he had a party, and it just didn't work out. And so I was basically just left with nowhere to go. And I ended up sending out a tweet on Twitter, and an old family friend who knew me through the wrestling community, he said, "Oh, Daenerys, my family loves you. You can go stay out with them in Savage, Minnesota." And I was like, "All right, cool." Well, again, I didn't have a car, license, or permit to get around because I'm a college student. Everything's walkable distances. And so I sent out another tweet on Twitter, and to friends that knew me, they said, "Hey, we can come hang out with you." And they eventually picked me up, dropped me off at that home. And that's where I started rebuilding. And I got accepted to every school in Minnesota, but I didn't have a car, license, or permit to get around. So I had a friend, she was going to St. Cloud on a Friday. I'm a late bloomer, so I reached out to her on that Wednesday and said, "Hey, do you mind if I jump in your car in 2 days and go to St. Cloud?" I went to St. Cloud, and that's where I really had a turning point in my career. At 19 years old, my big goal was to always go to school and start a business. And at St. Cloud, that's where I had that chance to start my very first business. I created apps for iPhones. So I don't recommend this to anyone. What I did was I took my student refund check. Instead of buying my college books, I took the money and hired a company overseas to come up with my own iPhone app. And obviously, I did not do well that semester. And I ended up basically I was banking on my dreams. I put all my eggs in one basket, and I had a chance to create my first app. It was called Zombie Doodle. And it was around that time that Walking Dead, zombie versus plants. I wanted to ride that wave of the zombie epidemic, and I created that app with a good friend from Burnsville. We collided and we met in St. Cloud, and we put our money together, and we came up with this concept. He was a friend that believed in me because of all my energy. And what I learned that summer is learning how to market. I had a lot of cool downloads internationally, but I didn't really make any money off of it. And it was just a cool passion that I was able to really bring to fruition. In that summer of 2013 is where I had all my downfall. And that summer I was couch surfing, trying to figure it out, networking with people in St. Cloud. And I ended up working a lot of odd jobs, but I was basically, every time I was left with $1.78. And I ended up surviving that summer really broke, never having a food budget of $10 a month. I would go to Walmart. I would go to Walmart, get $4 worth of chicken nuggets and $5 worth of potatoes. And I would just eat chicken nuggets and potatoes all month, ration it out, count how many chicken nuggets I can eat that would last me that day or that week, and really get myself into that survival mode. And I ended up getting a job as a debt collector. I started following the route of my friends. I used to live in a house where it was 13 roommates, 5 girls and 8 guys, and a really big, cool, fun house. And a lot of my roommates were working as debt collectors. And so I was like, all right, I'll jump into this field, whatever. And I ended up becoming a debt collector. I had an alias. My name was Matt Peterson. And I would just call people, "Hey, this is Matt Peterson. Give me a call from the office of J.C. Christensen." And I really was selling people hope on how to get themselves out of debt. As I'm a college kid who had to stop going to school because I was putting myself in debt and I couldn't work a job and all that fun stuff because colleges really don't want to, jobs don't really want to work around college kids' student hours. So I had to leave school, get a full-time job to try to get myself back into school. But what I learned in that job was I was calling people who had the dreams, who had the degrees, and they were living the dream that I had aspired to live, but they had a lot of debt that came along with it. And as a person that was already in $40,000+ in debt at 19 years old, working a full-time job, working $10 an hour plus commission, and calling people, it really hit home. And I'm a very compassionate person, and in that job, it really taught me that it wasn't for me. And I kept getting out of that position. I ended up quitting that job after working 6 months and just grueling, calling people 500 calls a day to only talk to one person, because to this day, I have met one person that wanted to talk to a debt collector. That's why they're in debt. They're not answering the phone. So, and I had a great time working that job. It helped me build my communication skills to talk to people over the phones. And I thought to myself, well, if I can talk to anyone over the phone, I'm sure I can go in front of someone and do the same thing. So it really built my confidence. And then I went to another job at Capital One. I worked in the fraud department, and I started learning the skills of, tech and all the fun things that school would have taught me, but I had to go into the real world to learn it. And at that job, I was really using a lot of attraction. And my friend sat me down and said, "Daenerys, you should watch this movie called The Secret." Because her mom had showed her that movie, and she's like, "You should watch this." And I love Sonia to this day, my good friend. And I watched that movie, The Secret, for 30 days straight at my lowest. And I watched it for 30 days straight, every single day, religiously. And at the end of that movie really taught me, light attracts light, darkness attracts darkness. And as a person who was going through a dark phase, I had to switch up how I perceived myself. And I started following the signs of my intuition, and I went to the library of Capital One, and I saw this book. It was called Branding Yourself by Kyle Lacey and Eric Deckers. And it said, do what professionals do, go where professionals go, and wear what they wear. And at that time, in the next sentence, it says, where do professionals go? BNI groups. So I joined the Chambers of Commerce at St. Cloud at 19 years old. Barely had a business. I had a concept. I had just created a website, but I knew that it was something that I wanted to do was to speak life into people. So I created my second business called Words Worth Listening Academy, which was an online blog where I just wrote my feelings. I made videos on topics that people would love to talk about, but weren't talking about it. And at that Chambers of Commerce, I met a mentor. Her name is Mary Dingman. And she was very successful in her network marketing business, making passive income. She was in her 60s and she was well off. And she sat me down at the job that I was working at the time at Capital One. I took my lunch break. And this lunch break lasted 3 hours, and I almost lost my job that day. But she said, if money was never an option, what would you want your life to look like? And then I came up with all these ideas. I said, I want this. I want the private jet. I want to wear nice clothes and nice cars. And she said, well, why are you not living your dream? And then I came up with every excuse why I wasn't living my dream, rather than come up with every excuse why I can live my dream. And that quick thought pattern of how she taught me transformational learning really helped me build my own self-confidence towards planting the seed, watering it, and knowing that whatever I water, it will grow. But if I don't know what I'm planting, how will I know what's going to grow? So she took me under her wing. She gave me all the books, the Think and Grow Riches, all the Tony Robinsons, the Les Brown book, and the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. And I just started reading. And at that time, I had nothing to do. I didn't have a job. I left my job at Capital One. I got so inspired because one day I came to work and I felt like I was in the same position 3 years later. And because it was another call center. I had just left a call center position to go to another call center position. And really emotionally and energetically, I was over the environment, the toxicity of corporate America, and being the cubicle life, the water jug, talk. And as a guy who was 19 with all this energy of people, and I really started to realize some of the people around me had given up on their dreams. I had a person that was sitting next to me at the debt collection job, and she had 3 masters. But was getting paid the same as a kid who just left college, who has a high school diploma and is making $10 an hour. And I was like, well, that's not the life I want. Even though I'm obviously education is all cool and dandy, but I knew that wasn't a path for me if I was going to be in the same position that I was already in without the degree. So she taught me all these things, and all the books she put in my hand, my mentor, I kept hearing everyone's story. I kept being inspired with everyone else's story. But at the same time, I didn't see any person that necessarily looked like me. And outside of Les Brown, one of the big speakers, and some of the other cats, I said, well, what's stopping me from writing my own book? What's stopping me from being in the light that I see all the people that I'm inspired by? And so at 19 years old, I wrote my first book called The Criminals of a Personality, the pocketbook guide for success, prosperity, and happiness. And in that book, it was me telling my story of me meeting like-minded people, but them letting themselves get in the way of their dreams. Every time I met someone at that age of 19 years old, aspired to be whoever I am today, everyone said what they could do, but they added the word "but" behind it. And that was the same thing that my mentor that was speaking life into me, that word "but" is the most limiting thing you can put into your vocabulary. Anything that's negative, you will manifest. And so I had a friend that I was, he said, hey, all I need is a flash drive to start my computer business, because he's a tech geek. And I was like, do you need a ride to Walmart? What do you mean all you need is a flash drive? For most people, they need a brick and mortar, they need a loan, they need this, they need a business plan, they need advisors, they need a whole foundation. And if all you need is a flash drive that's stopping you from starting your tech business to help people repair computers and phones and stuff, I said, get in the car. But I realized not everyone has that drive, doesn't have that intuitiveness. And fast forward today, he's now living his dream. He's an engineer over at Target, and I love to see him in that transition. But at one point, we weren't in that transition. We were aspiring to be who we want to be, but not seeing that we were already that person. We just weren't making the necessary steps and actions to do so. So I broke free of that environment in St. Cloud.